Women are no longer raised to be wives. That's why most will die alone with cats and wine. Well, before we get into it, the correct term is wives, just so you know. What I love about this insult that men throw at women is they think it's an insult to women, but really it's an insult to men. Women are choosing to get a pet cat over being in a relationship with a man. Getting a pet seems like a better option to them than dating a man. Tell me how that is not an insult to men. But what's more problematic about this insult is the marveling in what they perceive is a miserable life for women. You derive joy and pleasure out of thinking that women's lives are miserable because they're not in a relationship with a man. That is a disgusting way to think, and that is a pathetic way to think. Also, numbnuts, if most women, because they're not trained to be wives, they're all going to die alone with cats and wine, who are most of the men going to partner up with then? By proxy, then that should mean that most men will die alone. Does that make you happy too? Are you at least consistent? Do you also derive pleasure and joy out of the potential misery of men? Because we all know what the number one killer is of men, from teenagers up into middle-aged men. It's themselves. The number of men that have decided that their best option is to end their life prematurely, that number seems to be rising more and more. I never hear the end of this apparent male loneliness epidemic. And yes, I have seen content where this is being discussed and there are women in the comments who marvel and celebrate it. And yeah, that is upsetting to see. But when I see endless amounts of men celebrate and marvel in women's misery, what do you expect? So much of women's perceived toxicity to me is just them holding up a mirror to men and showing us, how do you feel to be on the receiving end of this? Just like men ending their lives prematurely or struggling with loneliness doesn't make me happy, this doesn't make me happy either. I get so many messages and comments from women daily, not only thanking me for the content that I make, but that I give them hope that one day they'll meet a man who thinks and acts like me. I don't marvel in that. That also upsets me, because I don't think that the way that I act and the way that I am in regards to my treatment and view of women should be anything special. It should just be the norm. Why am I consistently getting this message from women, and why have I never encountered a woman that has said, I want a man like Andrew Tate? But what I've come to realize is there's a lot of straight men that have no invested interest in caring about what women like, because they don't actually like women, they only like what they can take from them. The amount of women that have confided to me about their desire to be a wife and a mother, that they would want nothing more than to become that someday. In spite of all the shit that they've been on the receiving end from men, in spite of all the potential threats that a man may impose on a woman's livelihood, they still have a strong underlying desire to wish to start a family and have a husband someday. And they feel like it's not going to happen for them because they can't seem to find a suitable man who would be a good potential husband and father to her children. And I bet it's got fuck all to do with him not being over 6 feet tall, not having six-pack abs, and not making six figures a year. And it could possibly be that the mentality of a lot of men is that women should be raised to be in service of men. If that was truly a better appealing option for women to choose, why are they all insisting to stay single and get a cat instead? Tell me more how it's because all women's standards are too high and they're just way too picky. Were you raised as a man to become a husband that serves his wife? Because adopting this type of rhetoric is certainly not indicative of that. If a romantic relationship for a woman no longer serves her, she is not forced to stay in that relationship, and rightfully so. If you are not going to bother to try and make an effort to try and become a man that could potentially benefit a woman's life in a romantic relationship, why in the hell would they ever invite you into theirs? Do we also think men that marvel in the perceived misery of women is an attractive trait that women would look out for in a potential romantic partner? Like, do we really think men who are comfortable commenting stuff like this, it ends here? Or do you think it's a stepping stone into a further lovely attitude and mentality towards women? I want men and women to be together, but a lot of men have to evolve and adapt with the times. Or you can continue to write dumb shit like this in comment sections where you're just intentionally outing yourself as a miserable man and no woman should be in any close proximity to you. Are these single women with cats desperately banging on your door, desperate to date you? I mean, at least for single women who may or may not have pets, they could congregate in this comment section and begin networking with other like-minded women and perhaps make a connection. Whereas for men, they either end their lives prematurely or just suffer in loneliness, or they bond with other men online who share a similar interest in blatant misogyny. Yeah, fellas, we're doing so much better. Nothing angers these types of men more than seeing a woman who is content and happy with being single and isn't reliant and dependent on being in a relationship with a man in order to get that. And if the right man came along and she realized being in a relationship with this man stands to benefit her life, it would just be a bonus.